Welcome back to the sonic screwdriver. We are on part 4, which should be the last part. We have gotten pretty far here. It doesn't really all fit in the camera, so kind of squished it up, but I'm excited. We're gonna get going. We are starting on row 109 today, which means that you have to start on the wrong side. Okay, here we go. It's gonna be great. This is gonna finish this one off. I think this will be the final video in this sonic screwdriver. So I had one chain there, but that's chain 3, like usual. I just like to jump right in. I don't know what kind of an introduction you're expecting. This is me doing my thing. 3 in the back. And then 3 front and 1 back in the brackets, telling us to do it twice. So we go 1, 2, 3, and 1 in the back. If you're finding this video and you were scrolling through and you found it, you need to go find parts 1 and 2 and 3. This is part 4. And if you're new to this technique, this is interlocking crochet, and it's creating 2 layers of mesh that are just sort of interlocked. And I also call it locked fillet mesh. So my tutorial actually says it's a locked fillet mesh tutorial, LFM. So if you're new to the technique, you might want to start there unless you think you can figure it out, because I don't really go over the technique so much as just this pattern in these videos. I have other videos for learning the technique. You know how that works? And on this video, as you can see, I put up on the screen the pattern as I'm going. Sometimes I say all my stitches out loud, and sometimes, like this one, I don't know, I got a little wordy and I crochet, but I didn't say every stitch that I was doing. So that's what we're on part 4. That's why I kind of think that you have a handle on it by now. Maybe I am mistaken. I hope that it's okay. We are just about done this row. 4 in the back, and then we have to do EB, end in the back. Now, I don't have anything on the video telling you what EB means, because I'm expecting that you're going to go get that free download for the whole pattern, and it has a key, and a key is so boring and yet so important, because each designer will have a different way of explaining how they do things, and it's always good to grab the key when you start a new pattern and actually pay attention to the key. Designers put all sorts of weird things in the key that's supposed to help you, and people often just don't bother looking. So if you're looking at the pattern now, it says RS-ACF, which means right side. This is the side that we're looking at. It's pretty. AC is accent color. That's my white. And F means I brought it to the front. So if it's in the back when we start, it'll be a problem. So we need to keep it to the front. And I am using my main color, MC, that are even number rows. Row 110 is going to be in the main color. 1, 2, 3. Then we do 1 stitch in the front, and that means everything has to come to the front, the whole stitch. And then we do 3 in the back. So we're doing a normal double crochet. It just happens to be behind this other layer of mesh. And the interweaving part comes because sometimes it's in front and sometimes it's behind. And if there is a window in the way, you have to go through the window. So it's kind of fun, right? 3 in the front. These stitches aren't really getting too woven because the weaving is actually happening on the sides. So sometimes it gets a little more complicated. I think this is one of the simpler patterns, but the technique is very new to people, and sometimes they don't know what to do with it. Then we're going to do 2 in the back. This is one where you have to grab your stitch. If it was already back here, this is how you would enter your stitch, right? Like a normal double crochet. It's just that this one is in the way. So we just have to make sure we get it out of the way. Blue stitches are always going into blue stitches. White stitches are always going into white stitches. Oh, my yarn went into a funny place in that stitch. Let me try again. 2 in the front. And this screwdriver is symmetrical. So this side is looking the same as this side. So we know once we've done this is the middle, we're going to have to do 2 in the back again and 3 in the front over here. You could read the pattern all the way through, but once you get to the middle, it's really just doing the opposite of what you just did, right? And then 3 in the front. There we go. Two in the back. Counting is the biggest thing with these patterns. You want to make sure that you are counting the window holes and the stitches that you're using, making sure you get every stitch that you're supposed to be getting. This one is in the front. And of course, if you actually are crocheting with me and you've done 109 stitches or 109 rows, I think you know how to do this by now. But I don't know, maybe some of you are just really taking a hard time to figure it out. Row 1, 11, we're using our accent color. Chain 3 in front, then put 4 stitches in the front. And I don't know how many hours have gone into this silly tutorial, and I'm already like, well, what's going to be next? What should I do next? I'm not even finished this one. That's pretty much how all projects happen in my brain, which is why I always have so many works on the go. WIP, works in progress, you know? That's me. Tons. So I do actually need to pay attention to what I'm doing. 4 in the front, 2 in the back. Ah, there we go. 3 in the front, so that's not too hard. It's just going to make this little gap be filled. Oh, and my yarn, this was scrap yarn that was given to me, and I balled it up, or I caked it up. Yes, there's a difference. And now it's getting to the end of the cake, and it's kind of tangly. That's the second tangle I've had to undo just in this video. So it's kind of a little bit annoying, but it'll be okay. We're almost done, and then I don't even know if this actually is going to be enough to make it to the end. I might have to go get some more yarn from my stash, and I do have plenty. 1 in the back, and then mirror image, right? So now we know 3 in the front. Two in the back. Three more in the front. I think I did get a hair in there. I'm sorry. It's like cat hair, and it doesn't really bother me because between my hair and the cat hair, a lot of my projects have hair. I don't sell my crocheted pieces, so it's not a problem here. I can imagine that would be a problem if I was trying to sell it. But I'm going to keep this. Kind of want it. That's why I'm doing it. Now we're flipping our work, and we're going to grab our main color. These accent color tails are in the back this time. Chain 3 for row 112 here. Our first stitch for those border lines has to be in the back. Then we have 2 in the front. And 3 in the back. Six in the front. I also purposefully did not put background music on my video because I figured if I was doing crochet for an hour, I would rather listen to my own music turned down low so I could still hear the tutorial, or I would just want silence if I had to really concentrate. And I don't think that having my own, like, what do you call it, like elevator music is really helpful. It makes my video sound less empty, but the purpose of my video is to help you crochet, so I think I will remain quiet-ish and allow you to crochet with whatever noise you prefer. And we were doing 3 in the back. Don't forget your chain space between every double crochet. When I do miss the chain space, it's because I'm going too fast and I don't even notice. And every now and then, when I go into the stitch down here, I realize that they're like super close because I missed the chain space. And you know what I do? Nothing. I don't fix it. Unless I find it extremely in a prominent position, I just keep going. Nobody is going to look that closely and notice So I just keep going. It doesn't happen very often. I suppose if it happened all the time, I'd probably have to fix it, but I don't think it's happened in this project at all. And I had one project where I noticed it like twice, maybe 3 times. We are on row 113. We're gonna chain 3 with our accent color. It's in the back, but you have to make sure that the edges are flat in order to see, because sometimes it feels like it's just on the side, right? And then we are going to put 3 in the back. Only yarn over once because it's a double crochet, US terminology. All these fun little facts that aren't very useful at this point, I would say. If you've gotten this far in the project, you probably have learned that I use US terminology. You probably already know how to do a double crochet. Then we're going to do 3 in the front. I would really love it actually if you would comment and tell me if all 4 parts of the video were useful, because it will help me know if I really need to do more videos. And this one was already a free pattern, so I'm not sure when people are asking for videos if they're hoping to have a free pattern or if they actually need the video to follow along. Do you know what I'm saying? So now I'm talking too much and I forget what I did. 3 in the back, 3 in the front, and then 5 in the back. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're at 3 in the front again. And 4 in the back. That's that stitch there. We got to make sure everything's kind of pulled so that we know which stitch we're going into, right? And end in the back. That is the end of the row. We turn it again. The right side facing us, I always make my accent tails kind of hover at the bottom. And I try to make sure when I'm twisting my work that I'm twisting it actually back and forth like this. Back and forth instead of always turning it this way. I can't turn my wrist that far. I'm just trying to keep the tails from getting too tangled is what I'm trying to say. Chain 3. 1 in the front. If you've been on this whole journey of all 4 parts, thank you. Thank you for following with me. Please tell me that I amuse you, because I'd rather amuse you than annoy you. And hopefully this was helpful and good, and you know that I get silly because that's just me. I don't know how to hide it. I try to hide it sometimes, but I just don't know how. It's too hard. So if you're needing me to point this out, 4 stitches means that this corner is now getting in the back. And then our next stitch in the front here, we have some brackets, of course, telling us 4 3 4 3, but the stitches here to figure out where they line up is what I'm trying to point out in case you don't really want to count. So the edge of it has come back in. That's what I'm trying to say. Then we do 4 in the back. And 3 in the front. We're going to put 3 in the back again, so you can see that that corner, he feels like he gets pulled to the back, but actually when things lie straight, you can see him. One stitch in the front for that nice straight borderline, and our end stitch on the very end, outside stitch, whatever you want to call it, right? We're at row 115 using our accent color. Chain 3 in front. Then we have 5 stitches in the front. Oops, that my yarn did funny. Let me try again. Well, I guess my yarn's still a little bit funny, but I'm going to ignore it. I'm not even sure you can see that on the video. Then we have 3 in the back. And 3 in the front. It's another cat here. Blah. And 3 in the back again. And 4 in the front. And our final stitch end in the front. This is our last page, and it is a really short page, which always makes me feel very excited. I love crocheting, I love starting new projects, and yet I really love it when I get to the end of a project and I'm like, oh, finally. Doesn't matter how short the project is, I always have that like, finally. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, the accent color is in the back. Oh, don't do that, silly mama. There we go. Chain 3, 1 in the back. And then, oh yeah, 17 in the front. We're just going across. So what we're creating is a white line on the other side, which is right in front or right below the blue line, which is right below the outer edge white and then the outer edge blue. So all we're doing right now is creating the border, which actually you don't need to have the border the way I've drawn pretty much all of my patterns, with the 3 lines, like a dark, light, dark, and then the images inside. There are other methods that you can use. Some people prefer a dashed line. Some people don't put a line around the edge at all, and then they have these 2 flappy layers, and then they put a border around their piece when they're done, and that's what locks everything together. So there are lots of options, and if you want to create this in a different way, it doesn't really bother me, although I would prefer it if you at least said, hey, I used Ashley's sonic screwdriver and did this to it, you know what I'm saying? So we could count, or we could just know that it says there's still 1 in the back before that end stitch, so it's our straight line there. I will trust that I did 17 in the back there, or sorry, 17 in the front along here. I don't think I'm going to count that. I believe I got every stitch, so it'll be fine. So we made a nice white line, and I didn't really need to flip it. Let me focus. What are you doing, lady? Getting too excited. We're almost done. Yay! Chain 3 in the back, and then all of these stitches 18 in the back, which means that it's on this side, right? So if you had lots of sections where the layers weren't locked, sometimes it makes it easier to actually create that layer because you don't have the flap in the way. But then when they rejoin, the bigger the section that hasn't been locked, the harder it is to find the windows. Come on, yarn, you can do it. It's definitely going to make it to the end, so that's kind of fun. But then my next square is going to have to be small, otherwise I'm going to run out of some yarn here. I have bought lots of this yarn, actually, because I wanted it from my Doctor Who blanket. My Doctor Who blanket is a long time coming. I drew these squares and rectangles and small squares and big squares, banners, whatever you want to call them. I drew them up last year, and this is how far I've gotten. I got a little tiny TARDIS square, because I did a video for that one already, and this. That's it. I've been working on every other project. Silly me. Gotta focus on what I want versus what my business wants. It's weird when your hobby turns into a business. Priorities change. But I will have a Doctor Who blanket someday. And the end stitch is still here in the back. Come on, little yarn, stay away. So now we're turning it, and if you've noticed, if you have a really old copy, it might say RS-ACB asterisk. And I've updated my patterns instead of having an asterisk because people seem to think that it means they should be looking for the asterisk to tell them what's the exciting news. I underlined it and bolded it because there's no note. There is no note. It's just telling you that normally, whenever we flip it back and forth, right side accent color front. That's how it's been all through the pattern. But now it says right side accent color back. So there's no note telling you that. Technically, you just need to read it. But I noticed when I was crocheting from my own patterns that I often didn't read it. So I bolded it to tell myself that, oh, pay attention, something's different. We still do our chain 3, and our first stitch is in the front. And what that does is keeps these in the back so that next row you'll see this blue line. And we have 17 in the back. It's pretty easy. These final rows, they go quick because they're easy and because it's the end. I always seem I'm racing myself when I get to the end. I'm like, oh, I'm so close to being done. I gotta go faster, faster, faster. And I really can't go much faster than my normal average fast. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like I'm racing. And this color blue is not a perfect Doctor Who blue, but it's close enough for me. I don't know if that makes me a not true fan. I don't know if there is a perfect blue because actually the TARDIS changes colors. Did you know that? So which row am I on? 118. So there's still one in the front. There we go. Okay. Yeah, the TARDIS changes colors. The blue changes shade. So this is where it says row 119 starts with chain 3 in the back, and that's why we had to flip our tails there. So we're going to chain 3, and then it's 18 in the back, which means that we're actually going to go through every single window to really lock everything in place. So we find our next window, find our next stitch, all the way along the top. And I don't even know if I said it at the beginning of my video, but when I was drawing all these Doctor Who patterns, I actually did contact the BBC, and they said that I could share my patterns as long as I wasn't profiting from it. So that is why they're free downloads, and obviously the YouTube videos are free too. Which does make me a little annoyed when I see other people creating patterns and selling them, because they're making money off of a trademarked item, and from what I can tell, the BBC doesn't want you to make money off of those. So perhaps they have an agreement with the BBC, but I really don't think they do. And that makes me feel frustrated because I think my patterns are kind of cool, and sometimes people say, well, what can I pay you for them? And I say nothing because that's the law. They said, no, you can't profit from our art. You can't profit from our trademarked thing, even if you create your own art, right? Like I drew this, but it's still popular because they have a show that I didn't create, right? Time for scissors. So I did the last stitch, and then I just pull it through, cut it off, pull it all the way through, give it a little tight pull, and then we still have to finish our blue border. Where are you? Oh yeah, this is the one. Flip it one more time. We're looking at the wrong side, but we don't care where the accent color tail is because he's nothing. And we're going to chain 3. And then we put it in the front, 19 in the front, which means we're going through all the windows again. You can count them if you want, but one window, one stitch, make sure it's at the front. Oops, my tension's weird there. Every time you do that, I don't know if you do that frequently. I don't do it when I'm crocheting normally, but for the videos, I feel like I have to hold my hands out quite far from my body. And I try not to lean on the table too much because it wiggles my camera. I don't have a very sturdy camera tripod thing, I guess. And it messes with my tension a little bit. So I drop the yarn. Oh well. We're almost at the end. Yay, yay, we're almost at the end. We're almost at the end. Don't forget your final stitch. I don't know, it seems like a common thing that people forget. Now, you could cut it if you wanted to right here. If you want to add an optional border, there's two options. I used to have one option and then I updated my patterns to have two options. So we are finished. There it is. But you'll notice, because of the way my borders get locked in, that the outer edge likes to curl up on itself, which, depending on your yarn, could block out. Maybe you just want to block it and you're done. I like putting the border on because it makes it easier to join the stitches, or sorry, squares and rectangles. It makes it easier to join them later because then I know exactly which stitch to join it to versus trying to find, like, these are chains and double crochets, right? So I like the border because it helps it lay flatter, brings that back out, and it looks better. And it also is easier for me to join them. So before I do my border, I weave in this white tail because otherwise he is hard to find later. It's hard to know where to stick him. I'm just going through the white only. And depending on how long your tail is, you may choose to go different directions. Make sure you're going through the fiber of the yarn. You want to pull it tight so that there's no extra slack, but not so tight that your fabric is now puckering. And then I just cut it off at the end. And before you can put your border on, we're done counting our rows. So I take off my stitch markers. Usually you can turn your work so that you're facing the right side. If you want to do it facing the wrong side, most people aren't going to notice the difference. So if you don't want to turn your work, that's fine. Okay. So here's what you're going to do. If you wanted to do a regular single crochet border, you're going to put 2 single crochets into every window. 1, 2, 1, 2. Every window gets 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Right? If you want to do the revised single crochet border, which is what I prefer, you're going to be putting still 2 single crochets in every window. However, every other stitch you're going to pick up a loop from the white, and that just keeps it locked tight. It might take slightly more time to find the stitch. That is the downfall. And I prefer in the corners to lock in the first stitch. If you notice the corner, it should have 3 chains in it. So the middle one is the one that you want to lock in to the corner, but it's hard to necessarily know which one it is. And it'll feel like it's really pulling it at the beginning. And once you're all done, to me, it doesn't look as stretchy. So I did one, then I did just one in the window. The next one, you can do the back loop or the front loop, or it's like the post, one loop of the post. Whatever you choose to grab, you just grab one loop of the white and then do your regular single crochet in that main color window. The difference between grabbing stitches is just how much it pulls. And the more it pulls, the more you get a jagged line at the top, which is why I prefer to grab that front post. Not even sure what to call it, which is why I didn't call it anything in the pattern. I just grabbed the front post stitch because it kind of twists up. It stretches so much that everything is still locked in tight, but it doesn't stretch farther than the project. It does take more time to find that loop. It's kind of like a front post loop. I'm not really sure. Completely optional. You do not have to do this part. You can do a simpler border. You can do a none border. I've heard of some people who do, they actually just pick up the whole stitch. Sometimes they'll do the whole stitch like a double crochet into the white, and then they'll do like a half double crochet into the blue, so that it's trying to keep it all the same height. There's really no right or wrong. It's just, what do you prefer? How much time do you want to spend on it? What's frustrating to you? You don't want your project to be so frustrating. And what looks nice to you? Maybe your yarn doesn't stretch the same way my yarn does. Maybe your tension was different and you need to pick up a different loop. Maybe you just simply can't find that loop. It doesn't really make a huge difference. Crochet is about doing your thing for you and find what works for you. That is my big take-home message. Now, I did say throughout this pattern multiple times that I'm going to shoot every stitch so that you can crochet with me, and we will do a little bit of this border, but I really don't think I need a 40-minute video of me crocheting the border. So I'm just going to get to the corner soon, and I'll show you what I do in the corner again. And then I'm probably just going to crochet off camera because I think nobody would watch that, and that seems, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe you think it really does matter what stitch you use, and you're going to say you absolutely really prefer this type of stitch, and I'll say, cool, good for you. Okay? But you can tell us all the same. We don't mind. More ideas, more suggestions. And this is how I do the border for all of my projects now. I like to grab a loop and finish my stitch. I don't know. See, sometimes it gets a little bit wibbly wobbly, and I just don't mind. I don't mind that it's wibbly wobbly. So here's the corner. We've been doing grab a white one and then in, but down the corner, I'm just going to go in first and grab the corner, because the corner is the one that I really want pulled tight. So I grab one loop. It happens to be the second chain, if you're paying attention to that kind of thing. And you can chain one or you can chain two. I think chain two works good for my corners. Some people say that's too many chains. Do what you like, it's okay. Your next stitch is going to be this side now, doing the corner. It's the same white loop. Technically that loop goes into both corners stitches there. Now, I personally don't like the way that works, so I always fudge it a little every time. I'm telling you, that's how I do stuff. I go in here and I just pick up a different white loop, because the point of this is to keep that white one. Oh, see, I didn't get enough stitches or enough fibers of that one. The point of this, and then around the blue, I keep interrupting myself, I'm sorry. The point of this is to keep that white tied up against the blue, because I don't like to see through the windows. That's what I'm trying to prevent. And then here we can go back to our picking up a white one. And going through the window still, so that there's still 2 single crochets in each window. Now you'll notice along the sides that it's not the same as this, right? So this was chain, this is the top. So when you're doing a double crochet and a chain and a double crochet and a chain. And this is the side, so that'll be the side of a double crochet and a chain 3. So when I'm looking for a stitch to pick up, I like to look at the back. Like this would be a chain 3 and then the double crochet came onto it. So this is double crochet here with a little chain and a double crochet. And these are technically 2 different types of stitches here, which I'm not sure how much you can see, but if you really pay attention to your project and look at your yarn, you'll see that the loops are slightly different. That's okay. I still just pick up any random loop back here because they're quite stretchy. So I'm just picking up that random loop and finishing my single crochet, and then I go in the window for my second stitch. And then I go in here and I find some random loop, finish my single crochet, a second single crochet in the window. And that's how I do the whole border. I just find one random loop, and then it just keeps everything so that you can't see through the windows. So I'm going to finish that off camera. Okay, at the final corner, I did all the way around. At the final corner, I still like to chain 2, just like I did all my other corners. I already cut my tail, so it's a bit too short. And then that first chain is really just to get started. So I skip it and I just join it to that first single crochet with a slip stitch and a knot. And then I have to weave that tail in. But you can see how the border, you can see the border now. And if you were to block things and give them a little stretch, it would even them out even just that much more. So that is why I prefer it. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed my 4-part video for making this sonic screwdriver. It is kind of large. It doesn't really fit in the screen very well. You can see I didn't even finish weaving my tails in. That's okay. I hope to have more videos for you. You have to let me know which ones you're wanting. And of course, because it's interlocking, the back is an interesting sight. That's what I wanted to show you. Ooh, it doesn't fit in the screen, but the right side looks like this. The wrong side looks like this. You can tell that it's a bit wrong because the lines aren't straight, but it's kind of an inverse picture. So when you put your blank together, you'll still have something cool. That is all from me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And you have to click a little bell. I don't know.